Welcome to Raw, the S4 Labour podcast dedicated to helping hospitality businesses thrive. With your hosts, Alastair Scott and myself, Richard Hartley. Each episode will dive into how operators can stay competitive through smarter operations, bringing you insights, some stories, and some expert guests. Whether you're managing a small restaurant or a nationwide operation, Raw is your go-to source for success. So without further ado, let's get on with the episode.
Right, we're back again.
Yeah.
With a new name. We think we've come up with a
What's
name.
our new name?
Raw.
Raw.
Rick
and Al's Witterings.
Exactly.
Yep, like that. That'll do for me. Did I talk about last time how I used to do my weekly Witterings when I ran All Bar One?
I'm not sure you did, but I remember them.
You do?
Yeah.
I used to have to get up every Sunday morning and rack my brain as to what I was going to say in Al's weekly Witterings. And it became a bit of a thing. It got me away from Mrs. Scott for a couple of hours, which was
No
good.
bad
And then I come out afterwards feeling I'd achieved something for a Sunday. Raw,
Bonus.
but I like raw because it
Yeah.
kind of says it's a bit how we speak as well, isn't it?
It's a little
Well, you're
bit what we're
posher
trying
than
to
me,
achieve.
but
Well,
you know, I'm the
who knows?
token northerner and you're the posh one.
Yes, quite. Maybe not.
Anyway, why kitchens? We're going to talk about kitchens
We
this time,
promised
aren't we?
that we would talk about kitchens because it's probably the bit we get asked about the
Yeah.
most.
And last time you introduced yourself as Chief Salad Cart Monitor.
An ex-salad cart.
Ex-salad cart
not
monitor,
chief.
chief salad cart monitor.
Yes.
But what is your kitchen experience, Mr. Hartley? Other than you showed last week, didn't you, that you were an expert on carbonara because you knew it was
Oh, I did.
pecorino and not
Pecorino.
parmesan.
Yes.
Pecorino, and also you knew it was cooked with pig's cheeks,
Yeah, guanciale.
guanciale.
And not
So
lardons.
so that you sounded very good at that point.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it's bacon and it's cheese.
Which still works, right? Bacon and cheese is a combo
Still
that's
works,
never not
yes.
worked.
So other than your knowledge of carbonara, what's your kitchen experience that gives you qualification for this conversation?
Well, that's a good test, isn't it? What gives me yes, having done a bit of chefing certainly helps.
Yes.
Because I think one of the biggest dangers in being a kitchen is not knowing enough and actually having somebody else pull the wool over your eyes when it comes to your experience. So having stood on the cook line, having rolled your sleeves up and done something enables you to do that. So I did a little bit of that. I guess, through my operating days, I ran varying kitchens. So kind of in the small-ish portfolio of sites that I ran, we had everything from sort of casual dining Italian restaurants through to quite smart food-led sort of gastropubs, and a little bit
Through
of everything
probably
else
to
in between.
stuff with big hot and hold ovens as well, hadn't you got?
Yeah, no, quite in the early days, we had a lot of hot and hold.
Yeah.
Kind of sort of some of those M&B concepts, sort of harvester, less so in All Bar One, but we did a little bit. But kind of big volumes and kind of working in the wider M&B portfolio. Looking at Toby Carvery and I think Toby Carvery were probably still are the biggest procurers of turkey in the country.
I can
Doesn't
believe
surprise
that.
you. Maybe only in restaurants, maybe outside of Tesco's or something.
I'm sure Tesco buy more than anybody in everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fair.
28% market share. You can't help it, can you?
No, quite.
And
what about you? Go on then. That's a little bit of a potato of mine.
Yeah.
yours?
What about me? Well, I feel a bit underqualified now. Other than the fact that in M&B, I clearly ran the kitchen project a long time ago at M&B, and clearly still get stuck into kitchens in a couple of pubs now. So I think I know what I'm doing. And at the time in M&B, we came up with the 7 habits of highly effective kitchens. Of which
combination of Stephen Covey's.
Yes, of which my favourite one
bastardisation.
was not stepping off the line. And in fact, there was a chap last week. What was his name from D&D?
Oh, Medi Rogers.
Yeah, Medi. He was at M&B at the time when we did the mat behind the bar. Do you remember the mat? Yeah, and you weren't allowed to get off the mat. So he reminded me that actually we did that as well. So that was stepping off the line behind a bar, which is the same thing.
Well, it's a similar principle, right? Anybody that has a journey away from where they're interacting is wasted time.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yes, put things in the right place.
Yeah, it's fascinating actually how a lot of it can stem from effective kitchen design.
Yes.
Just like you have effective bar design, as soon as you've got too many journeys that take you off the cook line, away from the bar, you've just lost minutes, which add up to hours of a person's day.
And it's the hard thing. I was explaining to somebody last week, I think it was Keith Bird actually, you
We
can
should explain where
only.
we were last week.
No, we were in Rome.
We
We were in Rome.
on the
Yes,
R200.
yes, doing
study
carbonara.
tour. Yeah.
Anyway, I was explaining that actually the optimal design for a kitchen is X. So you design a kitchen for 5 people, 4 people, 6 people, 10 people, whatever the number is. And then everything outside of that is inefficient because they're doubling up on stations.
Yeah.
So therefore that is really hard. And whatever you do, you can't help but do that because you've got to design a kitchen for a specific number of people.
Yeah, you do. Right, now we want to go, as ever, we're going to try and touch on 3 key sort of top tips. Probably top tips isn't the right word, but 3 areas.
Focus areas.
Focus areas.
Yes.
in the
If
kitchen.
you were to really try and improve your kitchen, what would you do? And I need to go with my top one because you know it's my favourite. I've got a passion for it, which is pot wash.
Yeah.
And if I go all the way back to the start of this, when I was at a long time ago, I designed in the right amount of crockery so that you didn't have a pot wash on your quietest 8 sessions of the week. And it was only on the 9th session of the week that you ended up requiring to wash the pots during session. So you designed in the crockery so that you didn't have to have a pot wash. Because actually the truth is, on smaller sessions, you don't need a pot wash, and the kitchen team can then wash the pots at the end of the session.
And where do people go wrong on this?
They go wrong on this because too often they listen to their head chef, kitchen manager, whatever you want to call it, and they go, I want a pot wash. And they like a pot wash. So in the end, a pot wash gets recruited. They arrive at 12 o'clock. There's clearly no pots to wash at 12 o'clock. And they're standing around for the first hour and a half, not doing a great deal. Until then, there's an hour and a half's work to do. But the minimum shift is 6 hours. So you're paying somebody for 6 hours for an hour and a half's work, when the efficiency is all about the kitchen team just doing an extra hour and a half at the end and nailing the pots.
Yeah, and I sometimes think even worse than that, because chefs like chefing, in essence, sometimes when they've got the KPs coming in at midday, there will be a small mountain of work to do because it's beyond some of the chefs to think they can actually wash some of their prep equipment.
Well, and you will remember when I had the silicon spoon run in All Bar One, where I said, why can't we just take the beans for breakfast and clean the pan out with a silicon spoon and not send the pan off to pot wash? Because also there's a whole bunch of stuff that if you're cleaning it yourself, you'd actually get everything on the pan onto the plate, and then you can just put the pan back on the hob. Do you remember when we had little tags for them?
Yes.
So actually they had coloured tags, so you knew that was the beans pan.
Just like your chopping board. Or
Yeah,
in
exactly
essence,
right.
Just
like
similar
chopping.
principles. Avoid all the cross-contamination, but make sure that you're not having to wash up a pan every time you heat up some baked beans.
Yes. So my number one thing is decide really clearly when you need a pot wash. Otherwise, you can waste a fortune just in having a pot wash with nothing to do.
And your point about the pots or the crockery is that have enough for your 8 quietest shifts, and 9 was the right number when you were looking at it.
Exactly. You might have a smaller business, in which case you can do more sessions. You might have a big business, so you might need a pot wash a bit earlier. But at least you've gone through that thought process of going, when should I have a pot wash and when should I not?
Because it's much easier to invest in it.
What's your top one? What's your top one?
We were looking at peaks and troughs, weren't we? Because
yes,
this takes me back to my sort of casual dining days, and I was Italian casual dining. So we had pizzas, we had pastas, we had salad, we clearly had puddings as well, and those were 4 clearly defined sections within the kitchen. We'd write our menus almost based on those sections, and then it was really interesting to kind of go, well, how many board do you need to staff? How many chefs do you need to staff that? And lots would go, well, as a minimum, I'm therefore going to need 4 because I'm going to have one on each section. And we trained in those areas as well. So you'd be trained on pizza, you'd be trained on pasta, you'd be trained on I guess salads was kind of lardery salads, all that sort of stuff. But clearly we were not justifying, we weren't doing the sort of volumes in all the restaurants all the time to justify 4 chefs. So you had to understand how you ran the kitchen on smaller numbers. How do you run a kitchen on, at times, just 1 chef?
And even then, how did you run it then? If it was 12:05 and there was 2 customers, were all those 4 people standing on section?
No.
Or were they doing something else?
Yeah, I guess it depended on kind of each location. This will be the case for everybody, right? Sometimes open the doors at midday and you get inundated, but typically you don't. Typically it trades up and then you have a peak there. Your point earlier, though, we're making around kind of minimum shift lengths for your KPs is also the same for chefs. You've got a minimum shift length that's appropriate. So getting everybody in at midday is nonsensical because there's a bit of prep to do, but equally, they can't all finish at 6 as well. So staggered starts, staggered finishes, the right number of people in to do prep beforehand if you've got prep to do, which typically you did, and kind of certainly, I guess, if you're running anything that's got some sort of salad section in it, you've got to prep something fresh every day.
You need that fresh.
Yeah, you can't. Most prep we would like to think can be done the day before.
Yes.
But there are certain items where the quality will definitely deteriorate. I think we've all probably had that where you've had a bit of cucumber that was clearly chopped up the day
Cucumber's
before.
the worst, isn't it? It does go soggy.
Off so quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, terrible. Not a pleasant experience. We're not certainly condoning that. But looking at start and end time, looking at how you run your kitchen based on the number of people that you should be employing to look after the level of service you have, not the sections that you're running, makes a real difference. You've got some thoughts on this.
Yeah, and I think the harder bit is trying to go up. So if you take 12 o'clock when you go, I've got 2 customers, I need 1 person cooking, then actually the truth is that those other 3 chefs that might have started need to be doing something else. So actually they need to be prepping. And actually there's a flip where you go, there's some stuff that actually gets worse with time, but there's other stuff that gets better with time. So if you're going to actually make a stew, a bolognese, whatever it might be, but some of those things get better with time. So they're much better being prepped today for tomorrow. Because if you make it tomorrow morning, it's not going to taste as good. If you make it today, it will taste way better. So the flip is to have those prep items that where the food's going to improve done at that point. And then those people can step onto the line as the customer builds up. By 1 o'clock, then you've got your full team on, and then you do the same on the other side.
Well, and it's perfect because those are non-urgent items. So actually, if you do get hit, unexpectedly so, your team can quickly jump out of the prep for those onto the line. You've got the capability there, and you're not needing that product until tomorrow anyway.
Yes.
So if it gets finished later on that afternoon, it works.
There's always the chopping carrots, isn't there? Or whatever it might be, where you go, actually, I can drop those carrots and I can go onto the line. And when it goes quiet, I can go back and chop my carrots.
Yeah.
And in that way, that becomes free labor and free cost. Do you remember I wrote an article once on carrots and actually how you can think about how the business works based on how they run their carrots. But in effect, often peeling carrots can be free because it can be done in those downtimes.
When you're quiet, slack tasks.
As opposed to buying peeled carrots where you're paying for somebody else to do that as a fixed task.
Yeah.
So we're back on our slack tasks, fixed tasks mentality.
And when we say free, that's what we mean by that is using people when they've otherwise got something, nothing else to do.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
so
You cannot perfectly schedule the tasks with shift lengths to make everybody busy all the time.
No.
So an element of prep is always free.
Yeah.
It's always free. Which actually comes back to what I would say is the third point, which is going, how do we move prep from the mornings to the afternoons?
So, and this is such a big opportunity for the industry because chefs are habitual people and love to come in and prep in the morning for that day's service. And it is such an ineffective way of doing it.
And to your point, the only things that need to be done are those that are required to be ultra fresh at the time. Salad being the perfect example. But there's an awful lot of stuff that will not deteriorate if it's prepped in the afternoon for tomorrow.
And the point about the afternoon is that's your free labor.
And my favorite story always is going, what happens on Christmas Day? So if you say to chefs, right, how are you going to get it ready for Christmas Day? They'll always go, oh, I can come in the day before and I can do it on Christmas Eve. Don't worry, we can come in at 11 o'clock Christmas Day. And then you go, why can't we do that every day?
So Christmas Day is a really precious morning to have at home, clearly,
Yes.
because you want to be there with the kids to open the presents or with the loved ones to have a glass of champagne or whatever it might be. And so how
You'd have champagne, I'd have beer.
You would have something, yeah, okay, beer.
Yeah.
Yes, well, whatever it might be. Well, clearly, we're not advocating drinking before coming into work here, but
it's Christmas Day.
It's Christmas Day. We're make allowances.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating how the whole mindset shifts on that one day when the time in the morning is important.
And it's the right approach for every day of the year. 364 other days.
Yeah.
And if we could transform the industry by doing that, just think of the efficiencies and the improvement in the quality of life. Because in the end, too much a chef is on 10-10. That's too long a shift.
Too long.
Actually, a 12-10 would be much better, with a decent hour's break in the middle of the afternoon. And then actually that will work really well. And then the other bit, of course, is if you're on a 10-3, 5-10, that's worse because people don't want
2
a
hours.
split shifts. They need an hour's break, but they don't want a 2-hour break.
We all have an hour's break. Most people in the working world call it their lunch break.
Yes.
But nobody wants 2 hours because you wouldn't want to extend your day out too far at the end and
There's
start.
nothing to do, is there?
No.
So it is important, and we've got to figure out a way to move that prep to the afternoon, which is, if you like, the number 3 challenging kitchens. So in effect, we've got number 1 is pot wash. We've got number 2 is going up and down with the volume of work. And number 3, we've got as when do you do your prep?
Perfect. Well, there you go. That's not a bad little wittering for this week.
No. What do we want to witter about next, though?
Well, that's a good question. We've really thought about it.
No. Food for thought.
If you found this episode helpful, make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share with your colleagues. You can also follow S4 Labour on LinkedIn for updates and additional content. If you have any questions or like to get in touch, you can reach us at hello@s4labour.co.uk or visit www.s4labour.co.uk. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.